Universal Ethics and Moral Conduct, Swami Vivekananda. Ethics and morality, the real basis of life, the basis of all systems, social or political, research on the goodness of man. No nation is great or good because parliament enacts this or that, but because its men are great and good. People often work for the same ends, but they recognize that one must win the laws, no government politics are, which is not final in any way. It is good beyond them why where law is not needed. All great masters teach the same thing. Christ saw that the basis is not law, that morality and purity are the only strength. Love and devotion, the motive power of the universe. Love and renunciation, the motive power of the universe. What is the watchword of all ethical code? Not I, but God. And this I is the outcome of the infinite behind, trying to manifest itself on the outside world. This little I is the result, and it will have to go back and join the infinite, its own nature. Every time you say not I, my brother, but God, you are trying to go back. And every time you say I am not God, you take the first step of trying to manifest the infinite through the silence world that brings struggles and evils into the world. But after a time, renunciation must come. Internal renunciation, the little I is died and gone. Why care so much for this little life, all these main desires of living and enjoy this life? Here are in some of other place, bring death. We have been degraded down to the animal and are now going up to emerge out of this bondage. But we shall never be able entirely to manifest the infinite here. We shall struggle hard, but there will come a time when we shall find that it is impossible to be perfect here while we are bound by the senses, and then the march back to our original state of infinity will be surrounded. This is renunciation. We shall have to go out of the difficult by reserving the process by which we got in, and then morality and charity will begin. The watchword of all well-being, of all moral good is not I but thou. Who cares whether there is a heaven or hell? Who cares if there is a soul or not? Who cares if there is an unchargeable or not? We are in the world and it is full of misery. Go out into it is as Buddha did and struggle to lessen it or die in the attempt. Forget yourself that this is the first lesson to be learned. Whether you are theist or an atheist, whether you are an agnostic or a Vedantist, a Christian or Muhammad, the one lesson obvious to all is the destruction of the little self and the building up to the real self. Two forces have been working side by side in parallel lines. The one say I, the other say not I. Their manifestation is not only in men but in animals, not only in animals but in the smallest worms. The tigers that plunges into the warm blood of a human being would give up her own life to protect her young. The most depraved man who thinks nothing of taking the life of his her own life to protect her young. The most depraved man who thinks nothing of taking the life of his brother will perhaps sacrifice himself without any hesitation. save his starving wife and children. Who thinks nothing to take the lives of his brother men will perhaps sacrifice himself without any hesitation to save his starving wife and children. Thus, throughout creation, these two forces are working side by side. Where you find the one, you find the other too. The one is selfishness, the other is unselfishness. The one is acquisition, the other is renunciation. The one takes, the other gives. From the lowest to the highest, the whole universe is the playground of these two forces. It does not require any demonstration. It is obvious to all. What right has any section of the community to base the whole work and evolution of the universe upon of these two factors alone, upon competition and struggle? What right has it to be based the whole working of the universe upon passion and fight, upon competition and struggle? That this exists, we do not deny, but what right has anyone to deny the working of the other force? Can any man deny that love is not I? This renunciation is the only positive power in the universe. The other is the only misguided employment of the power of love. Power of love brings competition. The real genesis of competition is in love. The real genesis of evil is in unselfishness. The creator of evil is good, and the end is also good. It is only misdirection of the power of a good. A man who murders another is perhaps moved to do so by the love of his own child. His love has become limited to that one little baby, to the son of the millions of other human beings in the universe, yet limited or unlimited. It is the same love. Thus, the motive power of the whole universe is whatever way it manifests itself is that one wonderful thing: unselfishness, renunciation, love, the only living force in existence. The philosophical background. My idea is to show that the highest ideal of morality My idea is to show that the highest ideal of morality and selfishness goes hand in hand with the highest metaphysical conception, and that you need not lower your conception to get ethics and morality, but on the other hand, to reach a real basis of morality and ethics, you must have the highest philosophical and scientific conceptions. Human knowledge is not antagonistic to human well-being. On the contrary, it is knowledge alone that will save us in every department of life. In knowledge is worship. The more we know, the better for us. Man is like an infinite spring coiled up in a small box, and that spring is trying to unfold itself, and all the social phenomena that we see are the result of this trying to unfold. All the competition and struggles and evils that we see around us are neither the causes of these unfoldments nor the effects. As one of our great philosophers says, in the case of the irrigation of a field, the tank is somewhere upon a higher level, and the water is trying to rush into the field and is barred by a gate. But as soon as the gate is opened, the water rushes in it. As one of our great philosophers say, in the case of the irrigation of a field, the tank is somewhere open in the higher level, and water is trying to rush into the field and is barred by a gate. But as soon as the gate is opened, the water rushes in by its own nature, and if there is dust and dirt in the way, the water rolls over them. But dust and dirt are neither the result nor the cause of this unfolding of the divine nature of man. They are coexistent circumstances, and therefore can be remedied. Now, this idea claims the Vedanta is to be found in all religions, whether in India or outside of it. Only in some of them the idea is expressed through mythology, and in others through symbology. The Vedanta claims that there has not been one religion inspiration, one manifestation of the divine man, however great, but it has been the expression of that infinite oneness in human nature, and all that we call ethics and morality and doing good to others is also but the manifestation of the oneness. There are moments where every man feels that he is one with the universe, and he rushes forth to express this. Whether he knows it or not, the expression of oneness is what we call love and sympathy, and in the basis of all our Ethics and morality. This is summed up in the Vedanta philosophy by the celebrated aphorism Tattvasi. How art that? To everyone, this is tough. Art one with the universal being, and as such, every soul that exists in your soul and everybody that exists in your body. And in hurting anyone, you hurt yourself in loving anyone, and you love yourself. As soon as current of hatred is from outside, whoever else it hurts, it also hurts yourself. And if love comes out from you, it is bound to come back to you. For I am the universe is my body, and I am the infinite. Only I am not conscious of it now, but I am struggling to get the consciousness of the infinite. And perfection will be reached when full consciousness of this infinite comes. Two forces seem to be working throughout nature. One of these is constantly differentiating, and the other is constantly unifying. The one making more and more for separate individuals, the other as it were bringing the individuals into a mass, bringing out sameness in the midst of all this differentiation. It seems that the action of these two forces enters into every department of nature and of human life. On the physical plane, we always find the two forces most distinctly at work, separating the individuals, making them more and more distinct from other individuals, and again making them into species and classes, and bringing out similarities of expressions and form. The same holds good as regard and the social life of man. Since the time when society began, these two forces have been at work differentiating and unifying their action. Appears in various forms and is called by various names. Different places and at different times, but the essence is present in all. One making the differentiation and the other for sameness. The one making for caste and the other breaking it down. One making for classes and privileges and the other destroying them. The whole universe seems to be the battleground of these two forces. On the one hand, it is urged that though this unifying process exists, we ought to resist it with all our might, because it led towards that the perfect unity is perfect annihilation, and that when the differentiation process that is at work in the universe ceases, the universe comes to an end. On the other hand, the idea of oneness has had its advocates throughout all times, from the days at the Upanishads, the Buddhas, the Christ, and all other great teachers of religion, down to our present day, the new political aspiration, and in the claim of the oppressed and the downtrodden, and all of those who find themselves buried of privileges, comes out the one assertion of this unity and sameness. Applied to metaphysical, the question also assumes another form. One side wants us to keep to the phenomenal to all this variation, and points out with great show of argument that variation has to remain. For when the stops, everything is gone. What we meant by life has been caused by variation. The other side at the same time valiantly points to unity. The one side, the Greek side, which is represented by modern Europe, insisted upon the knowledge of man. In the India side, mostly represented by old religions of the world, insisted upon the knowledge of God. To us, in the present time, perhaps has been given the privilege of standing aside from both these aspects and taking an impartial view of the whole. Ethics is unity. Its basis is love. It will not look at the variation. The one aim of ethics is the unity. This sameness, the highest ethical codes that mankind has discovered up to the present time, know no variation. They have no time to stop to look into it. Their one end is to make for the sameness. But this is fact that variation exists, and so it must if life it is to be. A state of things where all the variation has died down, giving place to a uniform dead homogeneity is impossible so long as life lasts, nor is it desirable. At the same time, there is the other side of the fact, is that this unity already exists. This is the peculiar claim Not that this unity has to be made, but that it already exists, and that you could not perceive the variety at all without it. God is not to be made, but He already exists. This has been the claim of all religions. Whenever one has perceived the finite, he has also perceived the infinite. For we are bound by the logical necessity of our minds to confess that it is there, as the perception of the infinite would be not finite, not be. Therefore, the absolute sameness of condition, if that be the aim of ethics, appears to be impossible. That all men should be the same could never be. However, we might try. At the same time, ring in our ears the wonderful words of morality proclaimed by various teachers, thus seeing the same God equally present in all. The sage does not injure self by the self, and thus reaches the highest goal. Even in this life, they have conquered relative existence, whose mind are firmly fixed on this sameness. The for God is pure, and God is the same to all. Therefore, such are said to be living in God. We cannot deny that this is the real idea, yet at the same time comes the difficulty that the sameness as regards external forms and position can never be attained. The work of ethics has been and will be in the future not the destruction of variation and the establishment of sameness in the external world, which is impossible, for it would bring death and inhalation, but to recognize the unity in spite of all these variations, to recognize God, the God within the spite of everything, that frightens us, to recognize that infinite strength as the property of everyone is in spite of all apparent weakness, and to recognize the eternal, infinite, essential purity of the soul in spite of everything to the contrary that appears on the surface. The rationale of ethics. The rational West is merely bent upon seeking out the rationality, the reason, the theory of all its philosophy and its ethics. And you all know well that ethics cannot be derived from the mere sense. bent upon seeking out necessarily. Section of any person is however great and divine he may have been such an explanation of the authority of ethics appeal no more to the highest of the world's thinkers. They want something more than human section for ethical and moral codes to be binding. They want some internal principle of truth as the sanction of ethics. And where is that internal section to be found except in the only infinite reality that exists here in you and in me and in all, in the self, in the soul. The infinite oneness of the soul is the internal section of all morality, that you and I are not only brothers. Every literature voicing and struggle towards freedom has preached that you that for them, but there you and I are really one. The oneness is the rationale of all ethics and all spirituality. Europe wants it today just as much as our down-road masses do. And this great principle is even now unconsciously forming the basis of all the latest political and social aspirations that are coming up in Finland, in Germany, and in France and in America. The process that is going in the cosmos on a large scale is the same as that going on the micro, some on a smaller scale. Just as this universe has its existence in separation, in distinction, and all the while is rusting towards unity on separation, so in our little worlds, each soul is born as that cut off from the rest of the world. The more ignorant, the more unenlightened the soul, the more it thinks that it is separate from the rest of our universe, the more important the person, the more he thinks he will die or will be born, and so forth. Ideas that are an expression in the separateness, but we find that as that are expression in the separateness, but we find that as knowledgeable comes, man grows, morality is evolved, and the idea of non-separateness begins. Whether men understand it or not, they are impelled by that power behind to become unselfish. That is the foundation of all morality. It is that quintessence of all ethics preached in any religion or in any language or any religion or by any prophet in the world. Be thou unselfish. No, I but thou. That is the background of all the ethical codes. And what is meant by this is the recognition of non-individuality, that you are part of me and I of you. The recognition that is hurting you, I hurt myself, and in helping you, I help myself. The recognition that there cannot possibly be that for me when you live. When one worm lives in this universe, how can I die? For my life is in the life of that worm. At the same time, it will teach us that we cannot live one of our fellow beings without helping him. It is the good consist make good. The lowest form as well as the highest human being, the same divine nature is present. The one form is the lower form in which the divinity has been more overshadowed by Maya. That is the highest form in which it has been least overshadowed. Behind everything, the same divinity is existing, and out of this comes the basis of morality. Do not injure another. Love everyone as your own self, because the whole universe is one. I am injuring another, I am injuring myself. In loving another, I am loving myself. From this also spring the principles of Advaita morality, which has been summed up in one self-abnegation. The Advaita says the little personalized self is the cause of all misery. Thus, individualized self, which makes me different from all other being, brings hatred and jealousy and misery, struggle and all other habits. And when this idea has been got rid of, all struggle will cease, all misery vanish. So this is to be given up. We must always hold ourselves ready even to give up our lives for the lowest beings. When a man has become ready even to give up his life for a little insect, he has reached perfection. He alone lives whose life in the whole universe and more alone we live. When our lives are in the universe in others and living this little life is death, simply death, and that is why the fear of death comes, says an old Sanskrit philosopher. It is only the spirit that in the individual because it is infinite. The apparent man is merely a struggle to express and manifest this individuality which is beyond manipulation is not in the spirit. These changes which you are going on the wicked becoming good, the animal becoming man, take them in whatever you like, are not in the spirit, the liberation of nature and